Before he arrived, the evening slowly poured over Paris like dark wine running down the sides of a glass. Elise Morel sat on an old stone bench in a quiet garden near the riverbank, staring at the same empty path for the past 40 minutes. People passed by, streetlights awakened one after another, the wind played with the edge of her dark veil, and still she waited. 20 more minutes, exactly 1 hour, and no more. She had repeated it to herself so many times it had become a spell meant to protect the last pieces of her dignity. Because a woman like her was not supposed to wait. She was not supposed to sit in the cold, watching every silhouette, flinching at every approaching figure. Women like her were the ones others waited for. Elise knew the power of her beauty. When she entered a restaurant, men lifted their heads. When she laughed, people listened. When she fell silent, they tried to guess what she was thinking. She had a husband, a kind, calm man, a home with tall windows, friends, elegant dinners, silk dresses, everything people called a happy life. And then there was Mark Vallian, the man who destroyed all of it in only 6 months. She smirked faintly as she adjusted her glove. Mark. Even his name sounded ordinary. No poetry, no mystery. Just a man with the annoying habit of being late and speaking about himself far too much. He was not especially handsome, not especially brilliant. Sometimes he irritated her with his arrogance, and yet he was the one she thought about at night, the one she was waiting for now, among wet pathways and empty benches. She glanced at her watch. 6:45 p.m. If he did not come, she would disappear from his life forever. Elise had already imagined exactly how it would happen. She would return home, kiss her husband softly on the cheek, walk upstairs to the bathroom, open the mirrored cabinet and take out the small bottle hidden behind the perfume and makeup remover. Quietly, gracefully, without drama. There had already been enough humiliation in her life. Love had turned her into the kind of woman she used to fear becoming. The wind grew colder. The garden was nearly empty now. That was when she noticed the man. He emerged from the darker end of the path. Tall, slightly hunched, wearing an old grey coat. A worn backpack hung from one shoulder. He walked slowly, like someone who had stopped rushing years ago. Elise stiffened. The stranger looked around and suddenly sat beside her. Too close. She shifted away slightly. He smelled of rain, cigarettes, and cold air. "Don't worry, madam," he said in a tired voice. "I'm only borrowing a little warmth." She said nothing. The man stretched his legs and let out a heavy sigh. "In the evenings all the good benches are taken," he murmured. "This one is always free." Elise glanced at him carefully. Around 40 years old, maybe older. Once, perhaps, he had been attractive. Now his face was hollow, rough stubble shadowed his jaw, and his eyes carried a strange exhaustion. Not from a difficult day, but from an entire life. He noticed her staring and smiled faintly. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your waiting." Elise blinked. "What makes you think I'm waiting for someone?" "Because every 10 seconds you look in the same direction," he replied calmly. "Only hopeful people do that." She turned away. The stranger removed a bottle of wine from his bag and took a small sip. Then, unexpectedly, he offered it to her. "Sometimes this helps. I don't drink with strangers, and I don't introduce myself," he said, with a crooked smile. "Too exhausting." For a few seconds, she hesitated. Then she took the bottle. The wine was rich, bitter, unexpectedly warm. One sip, then another. and suddenly she realized she wanted to cry. The tears appeared instantly, violently, without warning. She turned away, trying to compose herself, but her shoulders were already trembling. The man stayed silent. No questions, no awkward sympathy. He simply sat beside her. And somehow that made it worse. "I'm sorry," Elise whispered. "What for?" "I don't know." He shrugged. People always apologize for pain, as if suffering were an inconvenience. She laughed through her tears. "Are you some kind of philosopher?"
The story continues in a couple of minutes. Stay with me and listen to the very end.
"No," he answered softly. "Just someone who lived on the streets too long." Elise checked her watch again. 7 o'clock. Exactly 1 hour. Her chest tightened painfully. He wasn't coming. She felt something inside her crack quietly, almost gently, like thin glass breaking. "Looks like you were left waiting after all," the stranger said carefully. "Looks like it." He nodded as though he understood better than most. "You know," he began after a pause. "Once I waited for a woman too." Elise looked up. And one day I realized people are only late for the places they're not afraid to lose." She stared at him in silence. The words landed too perfectly. "That's cruel," she whispered, "but honest." He took another sip of wine. "What happened after that?" "After that?" He smiled faintly. "I started leaving first. And did that help?" "Sometimes. People are strange. When you stay, they barely notice you. But the moment you disappear, they suddenly start searching." Elise slowly removed one glove. Her fingers were trembling. "And if they don't search? Then you should have left even earlier." Silence settled between them. A car passed somewhere behind the trees. The garden had nearly emptied completely, and suddenly Elise pictured her home. Warm light at the windows. Her husband probably reading quietly in the living room. Soft music. The smell of coffee. Safety. Life. A real life she had almost destroyed for a man who could not even arrive on time. Fear rushed through her. Not fear of loneliness, fear of how close she had come to the edge. She stood abruptly. The stranger looked up in surprise. "You're leaving?" "Yes." "What about your late lover?" Elise looked down the empty path, and suddenly she realized she was no longer waiting. Not at all. It felt as though a painful light inside her had finally gone out. "Let him keep being late," she said quietly. The man smiled, not proudly, not mockingly, just warmly. "Now you finally look like someone who can breathe again." To her own surprise, Elise laughed, lightly, almost happily. Then she searched through her purse, pulled out some money, and tried to hand it to him. He didn't even glance at it. "No. Please." "No, madam. Tonight I didn't sell you wine. I only sat beside you." Slowly, she put the money away. Then, without fully understanding why, she touched his hand. His skin was freezing cold. "Thank you," she said softly. "What for?" Elise paused for a moment. "For being here before he was." Then she turned and walked quickly down the path, step after step. without looking back. And a few minutes later, a man finally rushed into the garden, tall, irritated, wearing an expensive dark coat. He looked around nervously. He saw the empty bench, then the homeless man with the bottle of wine. "There was a woman sitting here," he said sharply. "Where did she go?" The stranger lifted his eyes lazily. "The beautiful brunette. Yes, she was here. Where did she go?" The man took another sip of wine and smiled faintly. "Home, I suppose." "Did she say anything?" He thought for a moment. "She did." "What did she say?" The stranger looked at him calmly for a long time. Then he answered, "She said she's not waiting for anyone anymore."
Thank you for listening to my story to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Watch it to the end and see the finished painting, which I also painted.